So I've not really done this before, but come on a walk with me.
It's early October, and I've headed south to Wiltshire to explore a few fantastic spots. I've set myself a plan. 3 different places over the course of 3 days, starting with Clearbury Down, then Caen Hill Locks, and finally a quick visit to Fonthill Lake. Join me as we take 3 days to explore 3 environments on 3 Wiltshire Walks. My first walk took me to Clearbury Down, just south of Salisbury. It's a chalk hillside with wide views over the Avon Valley, and there's an old Iron Age hill fort tucked into the trees at the top. The downs are peaceful and unassuming. That is until you stumble upon a roe deer or a red-legged partridge, and there's a sudden eruption of noise and movement, reminding you that this landscape, quiet as it seems, is absolutely packed with wildlife. So I set off from the car, and before I'd even reached the start of my planned route, I was met by a special surprise.
So I haven't actually gotten to the point where I want to start this walk properly from yet, but I've gone down this path, and there's a pair of cattle egrets in the field just next to me. No cattle in sight, but a lovely pair of cattle egrets. Don't even know if they will. It's probably not. I'll insert some pictures. But a fantastic way to start, or even pre-start, I suppose.
Cattle egrets are a species that took me a long time to find for the first time, so it felt like a really meaningful way to start, especially considering how the walk would end. But more on that later. As I continued along the start of my walk, the air was full of bird life and noise. My attention was drawn to the alarm calls of a group of rooks in the middle of mobbing a lone buzzard just overhead. It wasn't the only raptor around. Red kites were drifting low over the fields, scanning for food. I still love seeing them. They're one of the most beautiful birds in the countryside. And even now, despite their recovery, they never feel ordinary. My route took me down a narrow path dissecting 2 great fields of open grassland, and it brought with it one of my favourite sounds in nature.
As I'm looking out, I can hear skylark, I can hear meadow pipit, I can see both of them. The skylark's in fact just above me at the moment, really lovely to see. And it's just a wonderful place to be out and about.
The hedgerow too was packed with smaller birds, robins, long-tailed tits, wrens, and this very obliging chiff-chaff, keeping close to the edge, just long enough for me to take a quick picture. It was now that I could see the hill ahead of me, Clearbury Ring, and after some unrecorded and frankly undignified frolicking through a copse in search of thrushes, I emerged at the base to find a lone kestrel hunting through the scrub, which I used as a good excuse to take a breather. Now rested, I started the ascent, and as you'll notice, I was perhaps a little optimistic in my choice of footwear, and as a certain Grail Knight might say, I chose poorly, a decision I'd become much more aware of later on. But that wasn't on my mind at the time, as I was far too engrossed in taking in the phenomenal view from the top of the hill. My enjoyment was short-lived, however, as I spotted dark clouds building above and heading my way.
I've been really lucky with the weather so far, but I'm going to have to get a move on, because all of that rain is coming my way and I'm criminally underprepared for this walk if it starts to rain.
And it didn't take long before it did catch up.
So it's just started to rain, but I've stopped for a second because a little wren has just popped in to the undergrowth here, which is lovely and delightful, but there isn't a chance in hell. Oh dear, of me getting a photograph. I'm probably about 2 or 3 miles, I think, from the car. I may have made a bit of an error here.
Not long after, it really did start to get very, very wet. And once it eased off, I took the chance to procrastinate a bit more and stop to give you a bit of a lovey speech about the joys of heading out in all weathers.
Now that's a lovely sound. And I say that and it's immediately started raining again, but I'm surrounded by various tits. I've seen blue tit, great tit, loads of lothies in here as well, long-tailed tits. There's a chiff-chaff in here as well. But they're all taking cover inside this denser tree. If I try and do that, I'm a bit big. It is keeping me a bit dry. But not that much. But it's lovely. I think it just highlights that it doesn't necessarily need to be a lovely sunny day to come out and see some birds or hear some birds. They're out all the time. I'm having a wonderful time. I'm a bit soggy, but I've had a lovely day. Looking forward to a coffee after this, I think.
And thus came the final stretch, back to the car. On the way, I stopped to take a quick photo of a lovely grey wagtail perched on a gate. Not a bad sight for the tail end of the walk. And then, for reasons I still cannot fully explain, I decided to play Hobbit in what felt like a suitably eerie woodland path.
Get off the road!
Oh, and just a quick interlude. Remember that optimistic footwear choice? Yeah, this was the before and after. With car keys in hand and the car in sight, I thought I was done. But just as I was about to get in, a small tortoise passed overhead, and I knew instantly what it was.
So if it wasn't worth it already, as I was walking back basically to the car, in this tree here behind me, missel thrush has just landed. Beautiful bird, one I've wanted to see for a long time. Oh, excellent. Oh my goodness. That's why you go for walks whenever you feel like it. You don't have to wait for the best day.
It's funny how you can wait for a species like that. I remember checking almost every treetop that I could find, looking for a missel thrush for years, and then one's turned up right at the end of my walk when I'd stopped looking for anything. And it made what was already a fantastic walk one that I will never forget. Now, before we continue with the next walk, if you've enjoyed this and want to see more like it, feel free to subscribe or like the video. It really helps me know people are watching, and I'd love to hear in the comments what you've spotted lately too. Now let's head to Caen Hill Locks, just outside Devizes. It's a long flight of 29 locks climbing the hillside, part of the old Kennet and Avon Canal. I visited on a quiet afternoon and started the walk at Caen Hill Cafe, which served a genuinely excellent cream tea, with warm scones, proper jam, and even better, great views of the local wildlife right from the outdoor seating. While I was eating, the cafe turned out to be the perfect little bird-watching spot. A very obliging robin showed up first, perched on a post, completely unfazed, and sitting just long enough for a close-up. Then a small group of long-tailed tits zipped through the hedges, constantly on the move, never settling for more than a second or two. And then there was this goldcrest. I lined up what I thought would be the perfect shot, and of course, it shifted position at the last moment. Still, I'm really pleased with the photo. There's something I really like about it, and I think it might be one of my favourites so far. After leaving the cafe, and of course thanking the staff, I set off walking down the canal itself. Along the way, I saw all sorts of species that often turn up along these public waterways, including a mute swan gliding quietly along the bank, and a mallard dabbling nearby. There were also a few black-headed gulls, and a moorhen or two keeping to the edges, though the photos didn't quite come out well enough to share. Then, as I wandered a little further along the canal, I spotted a heron. Unbelievably close, and completely still. staring down into the water below. I moved in slowly, careful not to disturb it, and somehow managed to take a photo I'm genuinely really pleased with. I'm not much of a photographer. I mostly use the camera just to document days out, but every now and then I get lucky and come away with something like this. After that amazing encounter, I made my way back along the locks, completing a loop to where I'd started. This time I took it more slowly, pausing at each lock to see what else might appear. At one point I heard the familiar peep of a kingfisher calling in flight. I'm assured it was there, but I didn't catch so much as the classic blue flash. Just before heading back to the car, I passed the cafe again, and briefly considered going in for a second scone, but I decided that might be a bit greedy, and for the sake of my waistline, I left it for another day. My final walk took me to Fonthill Lake, a long, tree-lined stretch of water tucked into a quiet area in southwest Wiltshire. It's part of an old estate landscape, and though much of the park is private, there are public footpaths that follow the lake and surrounding woods. The setting is peaceful, and there are steep banks and dense woodland on either side, and the feeling that you're a little more hidden away than on the other wall. After arriving and walking down to the water's edge, I started noticing egrets flying across the lake, both little and great white. They were gliding over quietly, before landing in the trees on the far bank. The great white is much bigger, but that's sometimes hard to tell while they're in the air. The little egret's yellow feet were the real giveaway, and you can really see that in the photos. Between those two, the cattle egrets at Clearbury Down, and the grey heron back at Caen Hill, I'd more or less completed the set of British herons over the 3 walks, with only the bittern missing, and I wasn't really expecting that one. Walking along the woodland path, all sorts of songbirds could be heard in the trees. Most notably, a passing flock of goldfinches and siskins caught my eye. They were busy pulling at the alder cones high in the canopy. Continuing along the path to the dam, which I had decided would be my turning point, I was greeted by a grey wagtail perched atop a wooden stake in the water. After quickly looking for dippers that occasionally call the dam home, I instead decided to just look out over the water and sit for a moment of calm. Passing overhead to land in the water in front of me were several cormorants, making a rather unorthodox and an elegant landing. I always enjoy seeing cormorants, and find their incredible fishing capability especially fascinating, considering how doddery they look above the surface. Looking back, I didn't spend too long at Fonthill Lake, but the shorter visit was packed with some really wonderful sightings. On the walk back, I saw my final species for the 3 days, a group of tufted ducks diving out in the centre of the lake. Over these past 3 days, I've seen some fantastic wildlife across these walks, but the standout moment was, without a doubt, the missel thrush at the end of the first day. It's a bird I've been hoping to see for years, and it made the whole trip feel especially memorable. The weather wasn't perfect, but it made for a great few days of adventure, and I can't wait to head out again soon. If you're still here, I'm genuinely grateful. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking or even subscribing. If there's something you'd like to see in the future, feel free to leave a comment. Take care, and enjoy your nature.